Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now celebrating 17 years of broadcasting success, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, both for our radio audience here in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com. We're glad you all could be with us. Also, those joining us around the world, thanks to our friends at iHeartRadio, as well as Amazon Music Podcasts. We're glad you all could be with us as well. Our next guest wears several hats. He's known as a singer, songwriter, and actor. We're excited to welcome Stephen Martinez to our program today. He's celebrating a pretty good end to 2020 with a new single I know you guys are going to enjoy. It's called Chasing Summer. We're going to talk to him about the year that's been 2020, what it's been like for him to share this experience with all of you and his different facets of his career. And then at the end of the segment, of course, we'll let you guys know how to stay connected with Stephen and all the great things that are going on with him. Stephen, welcome to Conversations Live.
Thank you very, very much for having me, Cyrus.
Hey, glad to do it. So we have to begin, of course, where we are at the time we're having this conversation, Stephen. We're saying goodbye to 2020, getting ready for a brand new year. What has this reflection been like for you? I know you're celebrating the new single, Chasing Summer, but what has it been like for you to kind of look at the journey that's been this year?
You know, so for me, it's been sort of a several different platform version for me. So my daughter and I had spent just ample amount of time sort of away from everything at the Lake of the Ozarks, and it was for us, it became this escape, and being in the middle of the water, sort of away from it all was not only just sort of surreal, knowing that was like our only place that we could go, but it was also very comforting, and it was very soothing in the sense that it allowed a lot of time for self-reflection. It allowed a lot of time for just adoring the time and cherishing the time with me and my little girl, and friends that were there as well. But when we would be sort of back home in the environment and hitting the reality of this all, the struggles were there. I think I feel for everyone in terms of what we were all experiencing, and that sort of correlates a little bit later when we talk about Chasing Summer, what that song really meant for me. Mm-hmm. I feel like this year of 2020 was a year of darkness for all, and at the end of the day, I hate that phrase, but when we look at that tunnel and we start to feel like that tunnel just gets further and further along and darker, that I think we all believe and feel and hope, and more importantly, that there's light. And I felt like this 2020 became a year of hope, and a year of hoping that this was going to end, hoping that we could get back to some normalcy, hoping that we could be able to be around our loved ones again and our friends. And so for me, it was that struggle. But I think I took more of that as time to really just engage with my daughter and really just and show her things about being outdoors and being more active. And she picked up fishing all summer, and she became obsessed with fishing, right? So she learned things from a 6-year-old's perspective that I don't think she would have learned as much, right, if we were sort of back to normal. Right. She was forced to do things differently. And so it was a struggle for a lot, and it was a struggle for me too, but I guess I looked at the bright side of all of it. I looked at the glass sort of half full, right? And I looked at avenues that I could take the depressing times, take the lonely times, take the saddened and dark times that we were experiencing, and try to bring some light, because I think my daughter needed that, Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you shared that, because I think that connection is something that a lot of people, I think, kind of clung to during this time, Stephen, knowing that, they had someone there leaning on them, someone that they could lean on in many ways, and you've been able to have an amplified audience, of course, with your fans. So I want to talk about that, because that attitude of gratitude seems to be a big part of you. I mentioned to you before we went on here, and when I was prepping for this segment, a video that you did, and I promise you I'm not stalking you, but a video you did back in August of 2018.
That's okay.
You talked about gratitude and how humbled you were by the support. At the time you were promoting a single, Sounds Like Whiskey. Do you think that's just a part of who you are, someone who's grateful for the moment? Because that's just what you were just sharing, even about this year, finding those bright spots. Do you think that's just a part of who you are as an individual?
That's first of all, I appreciate you for pulling that video, because when that song, I won't say just when it went number one, it was just the ability to be able to really continue chasing a dream at my age, and being the example for my little girl that, I try to teach her every day, reach for the stars, honey, because if you miss, you'll land on the moon. And so I guess you could say that attitude of gratitude, which I love that phrase, by the way, has always been a part of me. I think I'm humbled in the sense that I've made so many mistakes over my lifetime, as we all have, and both within the industry and in personal life, and even with family. And I think from the industry's perspective, going back to being able to still at my age pursue something and things that I love, and I find great just gratitude being able to do it, right? And I'm not out here anymore trying to become famous, or yes, I would love to win a Grammy. Yes, I would love to win an Oscar. But for me, it's longevity. It's all about longevity. It's all about being able to continuing to do something that you love. And so I'm grateful for those that have allowed me to continue that. I'm grateful for the people who have stood by me all over these years. I'm one that back in my daytime days, I was always the first person there, and I was always the last one to leave. And I had to make sure that I signed autographs with every person that wanted one, because if it weren't for them, if it weren't for listeners, same thing with your show, right? If people weren't supporting you, you wouldn't be able to do what it is you do. And so I'm forever and eternally grateful to be able to have that outlet, right? And of course, we're creative enough to do things, but if I don't have people that support it and people that love and believe in it as much as I do, then I'm really doing this for nothing, right? And so I am forever grateful, yes. And that video was very near and dear to my heart, because I didn't think before that song was released that I could do this anymore. I was at a pretty dark place and suffered from a lot of depression over the years, and I felt like I just may not have been able to do it, right? And when that song went number one, I realized that I never quit for a reason. And not only is my daughter the reason I don't quit, but the fans are also the reason I don't quit. And the memory of my father is another reason I don't quit. But I've always kept the fans and my supporters in that tight-knit circle.
And I think that in itself, and you can hear the heart in your voice, Stephen, and I think that is what the fans connect with. And I think that goes to a larger thing about your fans. You mentioned what you've done in television. I think that's just a part of what translates to your audience, because, even as I was, again, prepping for this and thinking about the comments of people, what they've said, about the music, and not only, Sounds Like Whiskey, but also the new single, Chasing Summer, I think it's your heart that really comes through. I want to talk about that. Because what you just shared is very personal, but what is it like for you to know that you're connecting with people through your own personal experiences?
So when I first got into the industry in 1998, a moment in my lifetime was, at that particular time, was the most gut-wrenching thing that I could have ever had happen to me, outside now of something happening to my daughter. My father had passed away in 94, and he was my best friend my entire world. And I was watching, in December 29th of 1998, exactly 2 months after I buried my father, I was watching a movie called It's a Wonderful Life. And while watching this movie, I, of course, had felt like, having suffered from depression for many, many years, I had felt like George Bailey did in that moment, where what would it be like if I was never born? And that moment when he was going to jump over the bridge, but instead Clarence is in the water and he saves Clarence instead because his angel was there?
Yeah.
When I watched that moment, I broke down. Probably in one of the biggest breakdowns I've ever had. And I mean, I've got tears coming to my eyes now. And I looked at my mom, and I was sitting on the couch, and I said, Mom, that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. And the irony was I didn't have the support. I just had the belief that I could do it. But I wanted to do it because I felt like if I could affect people in that moment the way I was affected, then this is what I want to do. And so I've always sort of had that motive of that behind what I've done and why I went out and chased the dreams that I did. So that was the core for me. And I feel like the connection that I have always had with the fans, if you will, is that sort of bond. To know that you can put a smile on someone's face by them supporting your craft. To know that you can have someone contact you, which I've had many, many times over the years. Thank you for talking about your dad. Thank you for talking so much about your daughter. Thank you for what you did with Nicholas on General Hospital and other things. It was like, that's what I do this for, right? I don't do it for the money. I don't do it for the fame. I just felt like, I was that kid, that young punk kid that had just lost his entire world and felt like I could do this too, right? And I'm happy to be living proof that you can attain certain things that you strive for. But to know that you do it for the right reasons is crucial. And I think that's what defines my success, where, everybody's got to find what their own success means. But for me, that was sort of my success, was knowing that I could encapsulate everything I do by affecting someone positively.
Yeah. And you've definitely been able to do that. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. Stephen Martinez is our guest for this segment. We're talking to Stephen not only about the journey that he's been on, what he's been able to do creatively, but definitely the way he's wrapping up 2020 with a brand new single. About to talk more about Chasing Summer. I thought it's interesting hearing you say that, Stephen, that I noticed one thing that stood out to me is that you can tell what's important to you on your Instagram bio. You led with Daddy before artist. And I think that really says a lot about what matters the most to you. So let's talk about the message of Chasing Summer. I got it through our friends at Amazon.com. It's available for our audience to be able to get through their favorite online retailer, of course. What was it like for you to bring this song to life?
So ironically enough, this song was presented to me several years back by Jennifer Denmark and Kesey Timmer, who also co-wrote one of my other singles. And when I first heard this song, I knew there was something super cool, and it was about the groove. It was about just what the song would represent to most people in summer. And for me, I wanted, but in the bridge and a couple other production qualities, right, regardless of being a demo, just didn't really hit me. And so I wanted to sit with the song for a while. And so ironically enough, during COVID, while I had finished up the song that I released about my father, like son, I wanted to come out with something that was upbeat, that was sort of a subliminal, powerful message, right? And I felt that out of everything that we have in the roster of songs, this one was it for me. I just wanted to go in and reproduce this song from scratch, and we did. So Sam Moll at Shock City Studios here in St. Louis did everything I envisioned in my head, and I'm so proud of what we did. But for me, a lot of people could take this song in context of love and loss, right? And we all experienced that.
Right.
But for me, it went deeper. We going back to trials and tribulations and going back to an emotional journey of people and what mistakes may represent and how this year of 2020, like I said earlier, represented a dark tunnel for the entire world. And I felt like the message behind this for me was so powerful that I connected to this song on a different level. So rather it being about love and loss and me finding summer and letting summer go and longing for summer, it was more about knowing that regardless of the fact that seasons always change, in which case we know they do, that there will always have summer come back around, and that heat and that warmth of the sun will slap you on the skin and make you feel good again. And so for me, I associated that with the darkness of 2020 and knowing, again, that there's light at the end of that tunnel for everyone. And I didn't want it to be about love and loss. I wanted it to be about everyone coming out of this tunnel together, unifying and knowing that the seasons have changed, and we're all going to come out of this stronger and happier and hopefully healthier and more unified, right? And for me, so that's what this really represented to me.
You know what I also got from it, Stephen? I'm curious to see your thoughts about this, and I think our audience. I think that's a great thing about music and the creativity that goes into it. There's so many messages people pick up on that I think they personalize. Sure. I think appreciation of the moment, right? I mean, I think appreciating what you have, which is so in line with who you are. I think people can even tell in this too. So I want to ask you. You said something that was really interesting, and I hope our audience caught it. And then we're going to remind our audience so they can stay connected with you. That you weren't. This was not about fame for you. This was not about trying to make a name. So I'm curious, from the time you started in this journey, how was your idea, Stephen, of what success is? How has that evolved?
So are you referencing music? Or are you referencing the entertainment industry as a whole? Okay. Yeah. So music came about to me. I've always wanted to do music, and I've been inspired by numerous artists over the years, and my grandmother was a singer and dancer on Broadway at one very small portion of her life, and this happened with me a while ago when I was on General Hospital. I was presented an opportunity through Hollywood Records to do something, but it just wasn't for me. I didn't want to be the pop artist, and I've always loved the beauty of country music, and country music is like the core of what old traditional Hollywood storytelling was about. It wasn't about YouTube. It wasn't about, money. It wasn't about fame. It was about the craft. It was about telling true stories. It was about writing, and it was about talent. And Nashville and country music is just, it's the elite of the elite when it comes to that. And so in 2009, I took a leap of faith and moved to Nashville. And I got very lucky, meeting the people I met. I'm having a short stint as a trial period, if you will, as a songwriter at Warner Chappell. But it wasn't until my daughter was born. I was doing a show called Burn Notice in Miami, and my ex, we found out we were pregnant, and I wanted to move back home to St. Louis and raise my daughter in a very simplistic sort of foundation, right, in the Midwest and around family. And it wasn't until the moment that I held her in my arms for the first time that I knew she was my purpose for pursuing music. And it was more about being able to eventually become vulnerable. And I've never been a person who has let a lot of people in. I've always been pretty guarded. But I never was able to be vulnerable enough to either songwrite or get up there and connect to music in a very personal way. The camera did that for me because I could hide behind a character. Right. But you can't really hide behind music, right? Because we all can interpret music in our own version of what that song would mean to us, right? And so for me, this was the ultimate of the ultimate ways to become vulnerable. I'm looking at my daughter, and I became a father for the first time, and this is when I knew that music was my passion, and this is where I needed to be in this moment. And so that's how this came about. And so when I moved back to St. Louis, we decided to launch our own label. And now everything I do for music is basically going back to what I said in the beginning to my daughter. Reach for the stars because you can land on the moon. And I'm still trying to prove to her that no matter how old you get, stay connected to your passion, stay connected to chasing a dream, and you'll get there at some level. Whatever that level of success and longevity means to you, that's your own interpretation. For me, I just want to do what I love to do until the day I can no longer be on this planet.
That's a great way to be able to look at life, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. Again, everyone, Stephen Martinez has been our guest. Great conversation with you, Stephen. We've been talking with him not only about the year that's been 2020, but also his creative journey that's led us to the newest single, Chasing Summers. I mentioned we got it through our friends at Amazon.com. It's available through all of your favorite online retailers, so definitely make sure you guys take advantage of getting that and adding it to your playlist. Stephen, how can our audience stay connected with you?
Oh, man, I hope they do. Instagram is at Stephen Martinez, P-H-E-N, no Z, with an S at the end. Same thing with Twitter at Stephen Martinez. 40 West Label Group .com, StephenMartinezMusic.com. I do now have the TikTok, which not the biggest fan of, but I'm being sort of forced to partake.
Right.
So that, but yeah, Facebook obviously, Steven Martinez, and I do hope to connect. I'm on regularly, and what I love about the new version of social media, if you will, is we get to connect intimately, right? So I would love to chat with people, love to stay connected.
All right. Well, Steven, congratulations to you. Continued blessings to you. And looking forward to our next conversation together.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Cyrus. I greatly appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Hey, same to you. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Now let's go make today amazing. Take care.